Well, hello, everybody. This is Reverend Karen, and I'm recording back to back episodes today. I just finished recording the first episode of the day. It's the third step, the third in a series of four episodes. And I've got the fourth one done. I've actually had these done for a little while, and I decided to just get them done, get her done, and get them up. And let them fly, let you guys have them. So today is the fourth in a four-step series on treatment. And this is the last. Now there's five steps in treatment. So let me do the introduction and then I'll jump into the review of the five steps. But you can always go and listen to the first three episodes to get those five steps in detail. So welcome to Fearlessly Feral Living. And yes, this is Reverend Karen broadcasting to you from the Woogie Ranch in rural northern Nevada, where I'm a half an hour away from the nearest gas station and the nearest grocery store. And I just have to stop and pause here because I recently remodeled my office and I'm looking out my window, which is so nice to do now. Before, I was looking at a wall, and I've changed everything around in my office, and I've got my teaching symbol back there, right there, and my little altar and my candle, and I'm just pretty happy with the way things turned out. And I get to sit here and look out the window, and the sun is shining, and there's a breeze. Of course, there's always a breeze here. The wind always blows here, and it's just such a pleasant view, such a pleasant view. So, and it gives me nice available light, so I don't have to use that horrible artificial light anymore. So, anyway, here's our mission at Fearlessly Feral Living. Our mission is to provide a strong and unshakable inner foundation that works for successful long term living. And our purpose is to activate inner self awareness. And our vision is a world in which everyone lives wild and free. In other words, fearlessly feral. So, yes, we're in the last of the series on treatment. If you're just tuning in, treatment is also known as affirmative prayer. And it's a very special and very powerful prayer that we do in Centers for Spiritual Living that is taught via Science of Mind in Centers for Spiritual Living all over the world. And to recap the steps: recognition, the first step; unification, the second step; realization, the third step; thanksgiving, the fourth step; and release, fifth step. Now there's an acronym for that. It's Are You Ready to Receive? RURTR. And again, I've got weeks 1, 2, and 3 uploaded. This is the fourth week, the fourth part of the series. It's the conclusion of the series. We are going to be doing both steps 4 and 5 in today's episode. So here we are, Thanksgiving and release. We've gone within and recognized God for whatever that might be for you. We've also acknowledged our oneness with that God, whatever that may be for you. We've stated our word with feeling and belief. The last two steps are thanksgiving and release. Now, Thanksgiving, everybody knows about gratitude. I mean, at this point, gratitude as a spiritual practice is almost kind of trite, except it's not, because it's very powerful. You can go deep with gratitude or you can go shallow with it. The deeper you go, the more powerful it is. And in terms of this step, there's some principles of gratitude that are true no matter what we're acknowledging here, that we're grateful for. One of the principles in gratitude is that what we focus on expands. What we're grateful for, we will get more of that. And so, it's very helpful to do a gratitude practice, particularly if you're having a rough time in life. in terms of the fourth step of the treatment, what you're being grateful for is what you just stated your word for. You're grateful that it's done. You're grateful for, I'm always grateful for the process of prayer. I'm always grateful for these 5 steps. There's very rarely a treatment that I ever do where I don't express gratitude for that formula, that thing that allows me to move from intellectual headspace down into heart space, in the space of feeling, where when I state my word, it has power behind it. I'm always grateful for that. And I usually will express that gratitude at the conclusion of a prayer. But I want to suggest that gratitude is an active step in treatment. It is also an action word. In other words, it can be, maybe should be, I don't know, I don't like shoulds much, but if gratitude is a way of living for us, and we actively have in our consciousness gratitude every single day of our lives, can you imagine how our lives would change, given the principle and the truth and the law that says what we are grateful for, we get more of? So I just think gratitude is an active step. I use it on a regular basis. Some of you know, if you've been hanging out with me for any length of time, that I do a deepened gratitude practice every year in November. And it's a pretty wonderful thing. November is birthday month for me, so it's a good month for me to do a gratitude practice. Here's that gratitude practice in a nutshell, and you can start it whenever you want. You can do it any time of the year. You don't have to wait till November. Every day for 30 days, a whole month. And you could even start now. It's August 11th. You could start now. Every day for 30 days, write down 10 things for which you are grateful. Now, here's the kicker. You can't repeat any of the things you've written down. So by the end of 30 days, you've got 300 totally separate and unique things that you're grateful for. I love this because sometimes it's hard to come up with that many things, right? Try perforated toilet paper. I'm telling you, it'll make the list. When you get down to that level of gratitude, then you know you're digging in there deep when you've got all this stuff in there. So getting back to gratitude is the 4th step of treatment. Again, we've done the first 3 steps. We've acknowledged, we've recognized that there's some sort of God. There just is. And we can flesh that out with whatever statements or words we want to use, as long as they allow us to sink into that feeling space and move out of that head space. I mean, it's real easy to say, yeah, God is. But that's a headspace thing. But when we sink into it and we say, God is this energy force, it's this powerful thing that exists everywhere, including in and as and through me. And there is no separation between me and that God. There is no separation between me and that energy force. We are one. I've just done the first 2 steps of treatment, and I have felt that. I have felt that. So use those first 2 steps to sink yourself into a feeling space, a place where you know you're speaking from your heart, where you know your words have power when you do that 3rd step. And then we do the 3rd step and we speak our word. And the next step is gratitude. And again, I always pray when I do this form of prayer and I get the release at the gratitude step, I always give thanks for the actual 5-step form of prayer that was created and given to me by Ernest Holmes. I am so grateful for that form of prayer. It has become such an important part of my spiritual practice. I use treatment every single day almost. I did 2 treatments this morning. Just 2 things, two separate things that are going on in my life. I did them this morning and I got instantaneous relief. So I have a couple little things to say about gratitude. Eckhart Tolle said that if the only prayer we ever say is one of gratitude, it's enough. And it really is. We can be grateful for something when we when we're grateful for what the word we've just spoken, it just emphasizes it. It puts more focus on it, and therefore we get more of what we've just spoken. Gratitude is this thing that says, yeah, I did that. I said that. It's done. Thanks. It's done. Thanks. God is, I am. It's done. Thanks. So again, we can express our words in the gratitude step in whatever way, shape, or form we want. We just express them. And then comes that last step, the release. Now, there's a New Thought artist. His name's Eddie Watkins Jr., and he has a song, and part of the lyrics are, we don't plant a seed and then dig it up to see if it's growing. So when you speak your word, you've planted a seed. We don't go back and revisit it. We're done. That's what the release is. We're done. I find it helpful after doing a treatment to completely turn my thoughts away from whatever the object of my treatment was and go and do something else. So this morning, when I did those 2 treatments, I was driving. So I just turned my thoughts from the treatments and started listening to a book on tape, an Audible book. Turned my thoughts away. I did the treatments. I gave my thanks for them. I released them. They're done. Thanks. Bye. So if we keep thinking about it and worrying about it and fussing about it and revisiting it, going, yeah, but, and what if, and all that stuff, all we're doing is digging up the seed. Let that seed be in there. Let it grow. Go out, water it. Make sure the weeds don't take over it. Pull the weeds out. The weeds are the stinking thinking that will overtake that seed if you give them a chance. But leave the seed alone. Release it. Release it and just know that it's in there and that it's going to do its thing. It's such a wonderful way to do this stuff. And I'm going to continue the seed analogy a little bit here because, we prepped the soil into which we planted that seed by the first 2 steps of treatment with the acknowledgement that God is, and then the unification with that God. And then we spoke our word. That's the seed, and we planted it. Now we've given thanks and we've released it. Now, again, there's a saying around here, treat and move your feet. This does not absolve us of action. We've got to water the soil, which is keep our thoughts changed and clear. Because remember, prayer changes the mind of the one doing the praying. So basically, a lot of the times with prayer, although in the previous episode, I prayed for something a little bit more concrete. But yeah, prayer changes our minds. It changes us from the inside out. It opens up our consciousness and our avenues of thought, as Ernest Holmes says. I don't know about you, but when my consciousness gets opened up, when my thoughts get opened up, I am grateful for all of that. And I'm very happy to acknowledge that and release it. But we have to come back and take action, and we pull up the thoughts of negativity and doubt and fear. When we release, we're releasing the need to fret and worry about what we prayed for. We are not releasing the need to take action. The cool thing about treatment is that when we pray and we get our mind changed, then our actions start to change. And all of a sudden we might realize, ooh, I need to go do this instead of that. That's the answer to your prayer, guys. That's the answer to your prayer. So these last 2 steps, they're quick but deep. and in my opinion, very necessary. And another thing that happens with release is we release our treatment into that law that always says yes. Now, here's the deal. There's love and there's law. There's a difference between love and law. There's a difference between the law and God. It's not God that's doing this stuff. It's the law. It's the law that takes our words and says, yes, it is done. So we release our words into that law. We give it to that thing that has that power to take our words and manifest reality out of them, to create something physical out of our words, to manifest our thoughts. That's how this works. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, I could go down a deep rabbit hole about the law. And maybe one of these days I'll do a podcast episode about that. But I'm going to keep it a kind of simple on this one because I want to give you a little history about how this kind of prayer came about because it's fascinating stuff. So I said earlier that Ernest Holmes came up with this 5-step formula, but he didn't do this in a vacuum. Ernest Holmes studied a lot of stuff. He studied Phineas Quimby, who is generally known as the father of New Thought. Quimby taught that illness and suffering originate in erroneous beliefs. And there's a yes and to that. Yes, a lot of our icky stuff does originate in erroneous beliefs. And it behooves us to take a look at our beliefs if we're getting stuff in our life that we're not particularly happy with. But I need to remind myself that sometimes shit just happens in life. And when it does, it's not always about a belief that's erroneous. Sometimes stuff just happens. It is necessary for us to go within and explore our beliefs and see what's there. Not with shame or blame, but just to see. With clarity, with the support of an ever-loving spirit that is a part of us. With that clarity and that peace and that power that comes with that oneness. We go in and we explore those beliefs and we ascertain, is it time for us to change this belief? Or is this just something that happened? Because that changes how we deal with it. If it's just something that happened, then we need to go into loving acceptance and allowing and going with the flow and what is and all that kind of stuff. So there's a yes and there. Okay, who else did Ernest Holmes learn from? Emma Curtis Hopkins. They called her the teacher of teachers. She was a mystic and she taught a lot of new thought leaders. And she emphasized the divinity within us. She emphasized oneness. Thomas Troward. When I studied Thomas Troward in school, I dubbed him the king of the run-on sentence. And it was very difficult for me to understand him. But he profoundly influenced Ernest Holmes's thinking. At this point, I'm grateful for Holmes that took Troward's words and translated them into much shorter sentences because some of Troward's sentences went on for pages, literally pages. I had a tough time with that one. Ernest Holmes also took a lot of what he believed and taught to us from Christian Science. But Christian Science has some dogma associated with it that we don't like. We don't do dogma around here. So we've distanced ourselves from that. I don't hear a lot about Christian Science these days. It's still out there, but it's still got the dogma. But it does teach that we can heal ourselves through an understanding of divine law. There's that word law again. Ernest also studied Ralph Waldo Emerson, who taught about the power of the individual and the inner divine. There's that inner divinity stuff. And of course, the Bible. Now, if you take the Bible literally, no, you're not going to get that we have this affirmative 5-step process. But if you interpret it metaphysically and metaphorically, the way they taught back in the days when it was written, oh my goodness, there's some wonderful stuff in there. So again, we're talking about changing our thinking about something, right? So early on, Ernest Holmes didn't have these 5 steps. He emphasized belief and faith and the mental cause of our physical conditions. It was all about healing. In the Science of Mind textbook, there's 2 whole sections in the back of the textbook that talk about that give different treatments for different ailments, physical ailments that we might be experiencing. There's another book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. She was a Science of Mind minister. All the stuff she's got in that book came from this. So, and there's some fun stuff in that book. I refer to it a lot when I've got something physical going on. It's like, oh, okay, let me take a look at that. So he taught about belief and faith and the mental cause. But as he started teaching these principles to people, he realized that he needed to have a way to present it, a way that was understandable to the people he was presenting it to. And he needed to have it be repeatable. It was a scientific process. And when you're doing something scientifically, you need to have it be repeatable. So he came up with this 5-step formula: recognition, unification, realization, thanksgiving, release. God is, I am, it's done, thanks, and bye. The other part about treatment that I want to emphasize here is that it opens us up into that beautiful creative process that is my whole favorite thing about this whole teaching is the creative process. You know, we have ideas, that's spirit. We have the law, that's soul. We have the body, that's form. And that I mean, see that symbol behind me that I'm pointing at right there? If you're on podcast, you're not gonna be able to see it. But I have a teaching symbol in the background of my video. And it's got 3 levels to it: spirit, soul, body, idea, law, form. That's the creative process. It starts within us, with our thoughts, with our ideas. And then we speak our word and we release it into that law. And then that law takes it and moves it into form. It's simple, and yet it's profound and powerful. Don't forget to get to that feeling place when you're doing a treatment. Oh my goodness. This is turning out to be a rather short episode, which is probably as it should be. I've really enjoyed presenting this series to you, and I hope you've enjoyed it too. And I would love it if you let me know how you're feeling about this series. Listen to all 4 of them. Take some notes. Write down your questions. Contact me. Karen, what about this? What about that? Let's talk about this. We could even do some classes on this too if you want. So I am going to close with a treatment. Oh, and what am I going to treat for right now? I said earlier I treated for 2 things today. And in the 3rd episode, I did a treatment for one of those things. So I'm going to kind of come up with another treatment that's up for me right now. It's for peace and wholeness and grace, not just within myself or within us as individuals, but within the body of the population. Peace and wholeness and grace. And so I'm beginning with a deep breath, as I quite frequently do with the beginning of treatment, because the breath signals, excuse me, The breath signals to the body that we are stepping into a different place than just me speaking words. And so with that breath, I move into that place of acknowledging that, yes, indeed, God is. I am acknowledging that God is this irreplaceable, profound force. It is energy, it is light, it is love. When I visualize God, I visualize it as sparkling, golden, bright energy that's everywhere present. And when I get to that next step of unification, I move that bright light of energy and I move me and I merge us so that we are one, so that I am now surrounded and infused by all of this energy. And that energy is surrounded and infused by me. We are one. And then I get to that place where I know with great power, because I am speaking the word of God right here, right now. I'm speaking as a unique and individualized emanation of spirit. And so I speak my word now for a peace that comes over not just me, not just anyone listening to this podcast, but the whole population, the whole body of people of the human race. People out there doing things, going places, seeing people. All of a sudden, they are imbued with this sense of peace. And with that sense of peace comes this sense of wonder and joy at life. And a sense of a big sigh of relief. And I speak my word for grace, knowing that as it spreads out over the body, the human race, the people begin to feel grace and begin to act accordingly, knowing that grace is this beautiful thing that allows us to move through life peacefully, joyously, gracefully, without stumbling, kind of like a ballerina. We're dancing through life. And so I am knowing that everyone listening to this podcast, as well as myself and everyone present in the human race, is feeling some grace right now. And with that peace and with that grace comes unconditional love. And I'm feeling moved to add in joy and acceptance as well. And so all of those things are now blanketing us like a beautiful, serene blanket, a blanket of peace and joy and love and grace. So that as we are moving through our lives, we are feeling that. I am feeling that. And I am declaring this for everyone else. Knowing that there is no limitation to my words as I release them into that law that is saying, oh, yeah, we can do this. This is great stuff, Karen. Yep, it's done. Thank you for this treatment. And so, with that Thanksgiving, I release an anchor. And so it is. And so, I thank you very much for listening today. I am knowing Fearlessly Feral Living for you. And Fearlessly Feral Living is a focus ministry of Centers for Spiritual Living, which means that when you go spreading your wealth around and you support my work in the world, that everything you give financially is tax deductible. And there's links. You can support the podcast on Buzzsprout, which is my podcast host. You can go to our PayPal page and you can do Venmo. And I have the links to all these things on my website at fearlesslyferal.org. So once again, thank you very much for listening. And I am knowing Fearlessly Feral Living for you. Thank you so much.